Friends, you and I look at a lot of new cars together. However, there is a very short list of cars that not only set the trend for the segment in which they create, they set the future for the entire car world and, as of late, now the tech world. That list includes, of course, the Porsche 911, the Chevrolet Corvette, and it absolutely includes the Neue S Class. Now, the last time you and I looked at this, I flew to Düsseldorf and we looked at the car together at the Airbus factory. But the world did sort of change, so the car has been flown to me literally 9.5 miles away from our hangar. So let's you and I do a tech review together, and then we'll go back to the hangar and determine what all of these changes mean for the next 10 years of the car and tech worlds. Yes, there is an insane amount of tech to get to, but this is still a car, so let's start with the propulsion systems. There are two on offer. First is the S500. I have no idea why they call it a 500, because it's the same propulsion system we've seen in those AMG 53 models. The basis is a 3-liter inline six that has a turbocharger, and that is connected to an integrated starter generator motor. So what you are looking at here is a mild hybrid system that adds an additional 21 horsepower when the engine is not in use. It also has a neat little trick where it adds sort of like an electric supercharger to the turbocharger to limit the amount of turbo lag. Now, in terms of output for the 6-cylinder, 429 horsepower and 384 pound-feet of torque that comes in at 1600 RPM, stays flat all the way up to 4500 RPM. Then there is this car called the S580. Again, I don't know why they call it that, because it's a 4-liter twin-turbo V8, 496 horsepower and 516 pound-feet of torque that comes in 2000 RPM, stays flat all the way up to 4000 RPM. And this one, like the 6-cylinder, does have the integrated starter generator motor, which means also a 48-volt electrical system. And one of the main benefits of that, there's less moving parts. So both the 6 and the 8-cylinder has no accessory drive. So all of the bits that would be hanging off an accessory drive run off the 48-volt electrical system. Then there's that minor detail of getting the power to the wheels. There, whether it's a 6 or an 8, anything you want, as long as it's a 9-speed torque converter automatic that drives all 4 wheels. That means both cars coming to the US are 4-matic only. In terms of performance figures, they haven't given me 0 to 60 yet, but they have given us top speed. So the VMAX here, whether it's the 6 or the 8, that oddly is the same at 130 miles an hour. Now, if I'm looking into the tea leaves here and seeing what the future is going to bring, I'm willing to bet there's going to be an S63 or whatever they're going to call it, but I don't think there's going to be an S65. I want to be wrong here, but I don't think a 12 is going to make it. 7 years ago, you and I sat in the exact same spot, and I shared with you the general concept that the designer's vision went from his brain, bypassed the bean counters, and made it into production. This is incredibly hard in the car world of today. And it seems that magic has happened again. Some of it works very well, some of it we have to discuss. The overall design is one that's kind of a mishmash of like old school dashboards, where the dashboard literally is a board that is very far away from the driver and the passenger. Then there's the elephant in the room, which is the 12.8-inch OLED screen. Now, why is OLED important? Well, really 2 reasons. Number one, better contrast and truer blacks. And this is where you and I have to dive off into the operating system, which is similar to what we've seen in other Mercedes over the past couple of years, recent Mercedes, where you've got the different icons for media, apps, comfort, settings, and info. So I can layer on the active application, which in this case is the navigation, the menu icons, and then the quote-unquote hard buttons. But I can change this. Press and hold the menu button, and that changes to 2 rows of the different applications. Now, this is an incredibly important point which we need to discuss. Mercedes makes a huge stink that there are 27 fewer hard buttons in the vehicle. As you know, I am a big proponent of safer vehicles with more hard buttons, but this is something you and I should discuss in the comments below. Let me know, would you want more or less hard buttons in a vehicle with a screen like this? While we're on the topic of hard buttons, there are a few. There are volume control here, dynamic adjustments for the drive system here, and obviously a hazard button. Now, there is one other button here. This is for biometric input. Now this is about changing different profiles. So this vehicle can be set up with 7 different user profiles that would do everything from lighting to sound to seat position. Like for example, you could tell the car through the screen here, go into the settings and say, I'm 6 foot tall, and it will automatically adjust the seat and the steering wheel based on your height. Now granted, you can make further adjustments from there, but back to the biometric input. Number 1, through the fingerprint scanner here. Number 2, through stereo cameras in the screen. We'll get to more of that later. And number 3, through voice. Now, this sounds all very complicated, which it is. That's why it's been blessed with a faster processor. According to the engineers at Mercedes, they've improved the processor speed by 50%. And here's an example. I go into settings, and I can literally go and adjust the look of the car. Look at how fast it is. That's like an iPad Pro. I have not seen any system move that fast. Now I'm going to switch gears on you from this screen to this screen. For the avoidance of doubt, this one is 12.3 inches in diameter and LCD. Very similar OS that we've seen in other Mercedes, but once again, they've layered many party tricks on top of it. First and foremost is a 3D system. We saw this in the Genesis, however, the Genesis really wasn't real 3D. This is wunderbar. And how they accomplish this trick is through a mask that sits on top of the LCD screen, so it creates a bit of distance. Now this system is optional and works in conjunction with those stereo cameras we talked about for the biometric input, so it's looking at where your eyes are. So if you're looking straight out into the road, the 3D system turns off. But if your eyes are focused on the screen, the 3D system turns on, and you can change the design. So I can go in here and I can have understated, I can have sport, which looks incredibly cool. That really maximizes the 3D. Now, as interesting as these two screens are, and you and I can debate the usability of these screens, I would argue more so the safety of screens in a vehicle that weighs almost 5,000 pounds. There is something that is layered on top of these that goes to both safety as well as incredible technology, and that is a head-up display. Not new, we've seen it in many other cars, especially Mercedes, but this one is a completely different paradigm. And what it is a very large screen that shoots 33 feet in front of the car, and it is rendered like a 77-inch diagonal television screen. Let me repeat that. You go to Costco, you buy a 77-inch screen. I don't think they make them, they make 75 inches. And that is what's sitting about 33 feet in front of your car. Now, layered on top of that, they've taken the augmented reality from the navigation as well as some other apps that we've seen in a couple of Mercedes over the past year or two, and that now is in the head-up display. You can change the design of the head-up display by going to the menu. I can go in and switch on and off the augmented reality. I can go into an eco-type display. I can turn on and off head-up completely. I can go into a sport mode just for the head-up display, or into a minimal mode. So let's go back to that 48-volt electrical system. That forms the basis for a fully active suspension. Now, over the past couple of years, you and I have driven many different Mercedes that have a couple of different systems. One is e-active body control. That is an active anti-roll bar that does make use of the power from the 48-volt electrical system that can control the lean from side to side. Now, you and I have to go back a bit farther. When we first drove the S Class Coupe, that introduced curve control to the US. And what that does is a road scan takes the information, feeds it to the suspension, and then adjusts the air suspension, which this car does have, so the car doesn't lean going in and out of turns. Then there's the more pedestrian items like wheel size. Basic cars, 19-inch wheels. Cars that have an optional luxury package, 20-inch wheels. AMGs will have 21-inch wheels. Now, the obvious question, how much car is this active suspension being active on? Well, there the wheelbase is about the same as the outgoing car, 126.6 inches, the overall length 208 inches. To give you a basis of comparison, that's almost identical to a current gen BMW 7 Series. Then there are a couple of party tricks. The first one is active parking. You and I have demonstrated this in many episodes before. The cameras that look for other cars and enough distance between those cars in order to park it. This system is a generation ahead of that, where it can look for the lines and not have to look for cars and find enough space to park the car. Then there's a party trick you and I really shouldn't test out, and that's crashing the car. What it will do, it will raise the car 3 inches right before a collision. So if it detects the car is going for imminent doom, the car will pick itself up, and the logic is there's more structure lower in the car than higher in the car, and that's designed to protect the occupants. And then, by far, the absolute best party trick is rear wheel steering. Now you're looking at me like, rear wheel steering? Even Toyotas have that nowadays. Well, this is a bit different in that there are 2 different flavors on offer. There's one version that has 4.5 degrees of steering in the back. And then there's another version that offers 10 degrees of steering in the back. That system is on an executive model, and what it does, it takes the radius of the turning circle down from 42 feet to 36 feet in a car that's over 200 inches long. This is an S Class, so you and I do need to sit in the back seat, and no, I will not complain like I normally do because there's a lot going on back here. Remember the 7 different profiles we talked about from the front? Well, those can be shared with each position in the car. The car I'm sitting in is a 4-seat package that sadly is not going to be coming to the US because it is incredibly cool. It's almost like sitting in a boat where you're wrapped around in a seashell here, the way the seat is set up. But anyway, I digress. Let's say for the sake of discussion, the passenger in the front is listening to certain music and they want to share that music with just me. They can send it to just this position in the car or vice versa, or any combination in between. One can have up to 3 screens in the back of the vehicle. One of them is a tablet. Sadly, it is an Android tablet. Would love to see an option for an Apple version, but it does mimic the OS from the front of the car. That is also repeated in the screens here. I'll put that back. I don't want to play with this one. But while we're back here, let's focus on things that are germane to a moving car. One great example of that is an airbag. Now, that's not new to have a rear airbag. What is new is to have a facial airbag for the rear seat outboard passengers. How it works, it sits behind the rear seat, and it's 2 wing-shaped bags that inflate to create a tent that your face then goes into should you be in an accident. And then something neat, I don't know if it's only for the 4-seat package or it happens in the 5-seat package cars, the pillows here now have a heating mat in it. So it's not just a neck warmer like in a convertible where it blows hot air on your neck. The actual pillow itself warms up and you would put your head into the pillow. And then last but certainly not least, the Burmester audio system, something you and I talk about in every fancy Mercedes and Porsche episode. This one kind of takes the cake and is rivaling that Cadillac Panerai Bose system. 30 Burmester speakers, but wait, there's more. Each seat has 2 resonators in it, so you can adjust not just the bass or the treble, you can adjust the sound profile. Remember those 7 profiles we keep talking about? You can adjust the sound profile so you feel it going through each seat, but it's individual depending on the position in the car. Now, one hint advice I do have to give you, remember how excited we got in 2013 when we saw that they put the subwoofer in the firewall of the vehicle and that absolutely transformed the sound of the car? They've put the subwoofer now in the trunk, so it's kind of back where it came from. I can't honestly tell you if it works or not, but it's something we're going to have to experience when we drive the car. So you and I spend a lot of time talking about lighting in cars nowadays. It's kind of like the new trend. And yes, you can change the color of the lighting in this vehicle, but where this goes into a different direction is how the light is rendered. Yes, they're LEDs, but what they do is they put an LED every 6/10 of an inch in the light fixture, so each light fixture has at least 250 LEDs. Okay, so back at the hangar, and I've had some time to reflect upon our very early look at the new S Class. 3 things jump out at me. First and foremost is design. Now, I never like to tell you guys what you can see, yet I firmly believe all of us would agree this is an evolutionary step, at least for the exterior. And when you consider the job of an S Class, who buys an S Class, this is most likely a very prudent step forward. But you really do need to break design in this case into 2 buckets. There's exterior and then there's interior. That completely different direction, very much revolutionary. I can't honestly say this was the right way to go, only time will tell. And that gives us a jumping off point into the next important aspect about the new S Class, absolutely technology. However, this again into a couple of buckets. There's a technology underneath the vehicle, which we're going to have to put a pin in until we drive the vehicle, but then there's all that technology focused on those screens. The 3D screen in front of you, the OLED screen on the side of you, the size of the screen, and the orientation of the screen. It is incredibly obvious this is an ergonomic design ethos that's been influenced by the popularity of Teslas. Totally get it. However, this is a 2+ ton vehicle that has been designed, engineered, and manufactured by a car manufacturer that has been in business for well over a century and understands safety more than most others. So how about a hybrid here? How about all the fancy screens, but some knobs and toggle switches for the very frequently used items, and then continue to layer new safety items like this incredible, very large augmented reality head-up display. That would be an ideal solution, because I really see this new S Class as a bridge between level 2 autonomy and level 3 and above. Now, for the avoidance of doubt, you and I are not going to see a self-driving car for a very long time. But when you think about sharing 7 different profiles in a vehicle and doing all this stuff with all these different computers in the car, that's really meant for people that are not driving. And then last but not least, the third most important aspect of the new S Class is the 48-volt electrical system. I have gone on and on and on about the benefits of a 48-volt electrical system in many episodes. However, this is the first Mercedes where every derivation on offer is a 48-volt electrical system. And with that, you and I have covered an incredible amount in this very early tech review on the new S Class. I've shared with you what's important to me. Now it's time for me to turn this around to you guys and have you share what stands out to you and why. Let me know in the comments below or via our social media. And with that, you and I are doing another global embargoed episode tomorrow. No, not a Mercedes. Yes, a German car. And the only hint I can give you is it has 500 horsepower. So on the whole, it's been a really good week here at The Old Show. Until I see you tomorrow, bis später.